Hi, I'm Carolyn Jones with Washington State's Children's Administration. Thank you for your time today. You're about to view a program on the cultural needs of African American children in non-African American homes. Complicating life factors and poverty have led to a disproportional number of African American children coming into care. It is in their best interest to be placed in an environment that supports their personal growth as African Americans. Raising children is very much like weaving a delicate tapestry or growing a beautiful flower. It takes skill and knowledge and a commitment to get it right. Preserving a child's connection with their cultural roots is right up there in importance, with making sure that their daily needs are met, like getting them to regular dental checkups and seeing to it that they go to school clean and well fed. When we overlook cultural connections, we're leaving the yeast out of the bread or the sugar out of the cookies. Now, race is sometimes a difficult topic to deal with. You may at times feel uncomfortable with the discussion, but I hope that opening yourself to the information in this video will be for you, as it was for me, a growing experience. A willingness to open our hearts and home also must mean that we go the extra mile to ensure that African American children grow in the full knowledge and pride of who they are. Only then can they be all that they can be with self-confidence and that can-do spirit that's made our nation great.
Children are the reward of life. Yet raising someone else's children changes your world and theirs forever. Is living in a colorblind world where love is enough really sufficient?
Yes, kids can be a little harsh. I was one of the only African American people there, going into an environment with very privileged individuals, and they knew their privilege, and they made you understand that you didn't have privilege.
The question was put to us, what if, more like when if, you get a call that a child is biracial or different ethnicity than you or a different cultural background, how will you handle it? Is your home and your heart open to that? And what steps will you go through to make sure that that child is welcomed, that child feel validated and celebrated for their uniqueness, how they stay connected to their family or their community that they came from, and how will you be an advocate for that child in your home?
These children need families willing to instill a total sense of self, physically, psychologically, and culturally, while preparing for their future as African Americans. Though we like to think that society has moved beyond the racial prejudices of the past, our experiences with society differ greatly depending on the color of our skin. When raising Black children, we need to prepare them for the realities of the world we live in. Admitting racism exists does not mean defeat. It prepares you for its presence.
My sister's stepson is an African American young man, and I love him dearly, and he's a wonderful kid who hit 6 foot tall at 12 years old. And I would go shopping with him, and that was where my ahas came, because I would walk through the mall, and he might be separated from me about 10 feet that way looking at something, and the eyes of the store clerk would be on him while I'm watching a group of Caucasian kids shoplifting, not getting any due attention. And I work in the schools, and so I've kind of got a PhD in reading people and situations, and I'm thinking, what is this going on here?
Though well-intentioned, white parents taking on Black foster or adopted children need to understand the complexities involved.
This isn't just some type of job that a lackadaisical person can do. It's a real issue, and it has serious implications for how this young person is going to view themselves in the future. You don't want to, in your own ignorance or in your, because you think that you're colorblind, you don't want to imbue in this child a sense of self-hatred. because you need to recognize that the rest of the world acknowledges that they're an African American child, a black child.
One of the things that I think irritates me the most is when white parents or white people in general say, I don't see color. When you don't see color, you don't see me, because everyone else sees my color. So how could you not? So either you're lying or you're kind of in this utopia of your own that doesn't account for anything, and I'm not included.
Color still outweighs character for some in our country. Families must be able to pass on emotional and cultural subtleties of being black in America. It is essential for navigating racism in society with dignity and self-awareness intact.
All right, boys. Can you help me set the table? Yeah. Okay.
Familial support and attitudes about your choice of child must be positive, uplifting, and insulating. Families should be aware of their own prejudices and begin to deal with them before a child of color enters the home. Here are some questions to consider before you adopt or foster an African American child. Are you willing to be uncomfortable, and for how long? Challenge yourself to step outside of your comfort zone. Remember, your child will do it every day of their life. Is my extended family all right with my choice of child? How your family reacts to your child and incorporates them into the family will help to shape your child's self-image. How will I deal with discrimination, racial slurs, and other forms of racism? Your child will experience them and needs assurances you will be in their corner. They also need to know the truth about the world we live in and that everybody is not as open-minded as their family. What does your support network look like? How about your daily life and activities? Are there people of color around you or that you have close relationships with? If your life does not include individuals who look like or can relate to your child's experiences, the absence will be isolating for them. It's hard to be the only one who looks like you all the time. Where can you go to get culturally relevant help? The internet, support groups, the church. Get out and see what's out there to assist you and your family. Most importantly, what will you tell your child when they ask, why did you foster or adopt me, an African American child? Children, especially black males, should have many opportunities to connect with adults and peers of their race. You will need to seek out the opportunity to experience or reconnect with your child's community. Attend a black church on occasion or community event. Build racial pride in your home with images and artifacts that represent your child's heritage, books, toys, food, art, etc. Just knowing about black history is not enough. Being actively involved in or with the community is what will make the difference.
When you're raising African American children, make sure that they're going to have connection with other African American children through an organization, through a church, through sports or something, so they have that camaraderie. And what I've seen in white families who are raising younger children, it's never a big issue there. It becomes an issue in middle school and high school when they're so isolated and they feel the difference more. So make sure that when you're raising them and they're young, they have a connection with their own community and their own identity through books, through movies, through whatever, but somehow they see people like them who are successful and are doing well.
I've constantly got a flow of books and videos and things that I'm watching and that I'm asking for the kids' helps and insights on. And right now we're reading Freedom's Children, which is about the children who participated in the Montgomery bus boycott. And so we're talking a lot of history. We're also watching, TV and the news to make sure that we're having a constant conversation where race isn't something we get nervous about and don't really talk about except on calendar days to make sure we have at least one or two conversations, but that it's something that's a flow and that's a reality.
I say to kids, know your history, know who you are, know where you came from, and know that you have nothing to be ashamed about. So race is that's just part of life, and it will continue to be that. How we address it as a human being or as a person then it becomes an issue. But when you know who you are, and no one can shake that foundation, and you know that you are part of creating all of this that exists now, that you can hold your head high no matter what.
Facts help, information helps. I think having an honest conversation about this country's history helps. In some instances, you have to counter what the common recounts of this nation's history are. So, for example, I remember that in a lot of textbooks when I was growing up, I read that slaves were brought to America. And it makes a big difference when you say slaves were brought to America as to say Africans were brought to America and enslaved. And there is a difference there. And you want to teach the child the difference. You want to teach the child that it's okay to come to you for questions, and if you don't have the answer, you'll find the answer. But I think most important, in order to prepare them, because you want them to be aware, you want them to be proud, but you don't want them to be angry necessarily. So you're explaining, you know, the history and saying this is where we came from, and we still have a way to go yet.
And it's not something that you can, okay, I'm going to do that today. I'm going to make sure that this child understands racism in America today and knows how to do it. It's something that has to be, it's something that happens over time. It happens over, it's a practice. Because at the end of the day, you as a parent, you're not going to be there every time that child has to deal with a comment that someone says.
To successfully raise African American children, foster or adoptive white parents may need to reach out and engage community resources.
You know, going back to the role models is important. Finding mentors, African American mentors. I mean, because it's one thing, again, for us to say it, you know, but you kind of have to try and show it, demonstrate it, have people in their lives that they can look at as role models. We can be role models. I consider us pretty successful. But if an African American child is going to look at their skin and then look at us and say, yeah, but you're white, you know, of course you're successful. First, you can be too, you know, it doesn't matter the color of your skin. But second, then to prove that point by having examples and people that they can talk to and that they can, you know, talk to you about what their challenges were to become successful. You're African American, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. What were your challenges to get there? Because I'm sure that they were different than mine. And again, that's something not only that we need to educate ourselves on, but that we can help educate our child on so that they are equipped to overcome those.
Right from the start, our circumstances are different from anybody else. Our ethnicity, what we need, our love, any of it is different. I think that foster parents need the chance to be educated on what each ethnicity needs in order for each youth and each child to be able to build their self-esteem from inside, because a lot of us have been through so much that a lot of times the only way we're ever going to be able to grow strong is from within. So in order for that, sometimes that might be through our culture, and a way for that to happen is going to be through our foster parents giving us a sense of pride in who we are.
Emphasize the importance of self-love by loving all of them as they are. Hair, lips, body shape and complexion, everything that makes your child. They must learn to love themselves fully, because some in society will continually try to undermine their self-esteem through the media and daily life.
What a Caucasian care provider could do, first and foremost, is not live in denial. You have an African American child in your care. You're going to find that a lot of the things that you thought about African Americans are wrong. The stereotypes will be proven wrong. But what you're going to find is a lot of the cultural attributes are real.
Hi.
Hey, girl, what's up?
Hey, how's your garden? Girl, you should see my garden. I have greens this big, and I
Yeah.
picked.
Hey, I didn't
Hey,
know
we're
that.
talking about greens.
Oh, all right. Miss
It's-
Jane, you could have come on.
I have greens this
Hey.
big. It's my second crop, and I'm getting ready to plant the third crop. And they are good. I picked a big pail full.
Now where's dinner?
Like many cultural groups, African Americans have a way of socializing, relating to each other, and navigating the world. This allows acceptance and understanding within the Black community, yet may be unacceptable to the majority. This ability to go from one world to the other with little thought and relative ease is essential.
Hey, don't be hating on her because she's beautiful and got it going on, and you know, she's being her. Hang on. Division of License Resources.
Children must become experts in what is normal for the majority culture and within their own culture among their peers.
A licensed foster care provider.
Don't ever put your place in a situation where you feel uncomfortable. Know who you run with. Know who has your back covered. And if you don't feel comfortable in those places, know that you need to remove yourself. I say that to all kids, though. But really, for our African American boys, my husband does a lot of talking to them about that. He talks about your dating preference. He talks about family members. He talks about all of the things that you need to know about in a safety situation. He talks about if you're driving down the road and someone stops you, a policeman, how you need to approach that.
When you have children at all, and when you have children of color, you want them to be aware that, aware of their particular surroundings, and also be aware of what their presence may mean. If they're the only children of color in an area, they may actually attract a lot more attention, no matter what it is that they're doing.
When we walk into a store versus when a white person walks into a store, the dynamics are completely different. We have to prove ourselves worthy to buy the ring in the jewelry store, and even look at the ring.
Be aware that if you walk into a clothing store, that there may be someone that's going to follow you around until you leave that store. Be aware of that. If you are out running like I was, be aware that if a cop drives by, chances are he's going to stop you. I mean, and one of the worst things that can happen in those situations is the attitude of the child escalating that issue to where you've now given the police officer or the store clerk reason to take it a step further.
You have to be aware of the threats, you have to be aware of the dangers, and your reactions to those threats, to those dangers, to those situations, again, are either going to help you or are going to contribute to the situation and push it in a direction you don't want it to go. So again, as much as we may not like and disagree with the fact that if you're a single African American male running down the street, that you might be stopped by a police officer and asked, where are you going? What are you doing? Where are you coming from? That's really sad, and it's really unfortunate. But it may be a reality that we all have to work within.
Day-to-day activities or occurrences, like shopping or traffic stops, should be handled delicately when you have children of color. Remind your children to always have money in their pocket when shopping, even if they aren't planning to buy anything, and to keep their receipt in hand until they exit the store and stow their bags. If security follows them, do not act jumpy, but continue your business and calmly exit the store when finished.
You can go.
Thank you.
To ensure your child has a successful encounter with the police without additional hardship, teach them to react without becoming overly emotional, angry, or frustrated, and to refrain from being smart.
In Rainier Avenue South. Is there a reason why?
I thought the light was still yellow when I went through it, so I just continued on.
Okay. Can I see your driver's license, proof of insurance, please?
Sure. My license is in my pocket. Can I go get it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do not move unless directed to do so, and keep your hands in plain sight.
Here's my license, and my insurance card is in my glove box. Mind if I reach for it?
Yeah, go ahead.
They need to be polite, humble, and ask questions to the officer like, "Is it okay if I," when responding to the officer's demands.
My uncle always told me to, you know, always go the speed limit, no matter what. You don't want to give them cause to give you a ticket. And I always thought it was something that only African American males have to deal with. But after, like, I drive frequently now and just see the amount of times that I've gotten pulled over for nothing, not speeding, nothing. You just stop me to look into my car or ask me to see my ID.
Policies like racial profiling or the disproportional number of African Americans in the juvenile and penal system combined with recent events like the Jena 6, the noose incidents at Columbia University, and the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, along with other racially motivated hate crimes, serve as constant reminders about our nation's race fixation and struggles with prejudice. Recognizing symbols and practices of prejudice and how to conduct oneself under the threat of harm, perceived or real, should be part of your safety plan. Some symbols include the Confederate flag, the noose, synonymous with the lynching and intimidation of African Americans in America, the Ku Klux Klan or KKK, Nazi symbols, and the Aryan Nation symbols. While traveling, be aware of possible lingering racist practices, like sundown towns, where non-Caucasians may be harassed for being out after sunset. Your safety plan requires constant vigilance. You are your child's first line of defense. Always be aware of your surroundings and vigilant about your children's and family's safety.
The problem here is, what can a white family do to instill that into an African American child? Okay? They're going to have to be willing first to understand that that's real. That's the first start. I think after that, most people that have common sense enough to raise children can take it from there.
The privileges you have as a Caucasian will not be offered to your children when they reach adolescence. Little black boys become big black men, and society fears them, not for who they are, but simply what they are. Do not discount girls. They will also have some of the same issues.
It's really about walking the walk with that child and making sure that you're there to help them navigate every single step and monitoring. Because I think we don't want to teach our children that everyone's out to do you wrong. But you do need to monitor that they're not being done wrong, too. And so, for me, as a white foster mom of a black child, walking through that with them, with my constant monitoring, with my constant empowering, with my cheering on, with my celebrating every single success, because success breeds success breeds success. Really making sure. And whether it be with my child, modeling for my child when something is done wrong or they've been done wrong, or maybe on the side, having side conversations.
Quentin, what's on your mind?
Use teachable moments to express how important it is that your child comes to you whenever they feel ill at ease about treatment or topics related to race.
How did you feel when he called you the name?
Upset.
The best time to have those conversations is when it's relevant, when it's very relevant. If you're on your way to the mall to drop the kid off at the mall to hang out with his friends, well, you need to have that talk with him before you let him out of your sight. And it's like I alluded to earlier, it's a continuous thing. It's not something that you can plan to do on Friday and then you're done. It's something that every opportunity that you get to reinforce this is reality and this is what you have to deal with. And the best way to minimize its effect on you is to be aware of it and know how to deal with it when it happens.
Frustration is a really easy emotion to fall into for anybody. And I think that you need to acknowledge that and discuss it, that I'm frustrated, this isn't fair. et cetera. And it may not be fair, and acknowledge that, but then it's a reality. So how are we going to respond to that unfairness? How are we going to respond to that challenge? We can do it in a way where you further your goals, you get closer to your goals, achieving your goals, or you can do it to where you hinder that by your reaction to it. So I think that, talking over what is appropriate, what's not appropriate as far as response, what's going to get you where you want to go and what's going to hurt you, are topics that you really need to talk to over with your child.
Well, I would think that it's real important as a foster parent that they're going to always be in conferences, that there's no way in the world that a foster parent should miss a conference in a school, that a foster parent, if they're not working, should be a part of some type of activity that's going on in that school, if it's chaperoning a field trip, being there if they're in choir. But somehow we need to make sure that they're being a part of that child's life at all times, because when they are there, they can really tell if things are working well for their child. If they're never there, there's no way in the world that they can tell.
Families must stay actively involved and present in all of their child's academic activities. Your child's future will likely be affected by it. Do not dismiss or downplay your child's experiences or thoughts about unequal treatment. Be there for your children.
The kid that was right next to me in class. He didn't even do anything. It was you, because like the teacher thought I was the one that was talking all loud.
It was the person next to him. Really?
Yeah.
And how did she tell you that?
She just said it's detention for you.
She gave you detention?
Yeah.
For something you didn't do? We're going to talk to her about that.
If I perceive something as being unjust or racist, it's my job as the mom to be up there and be forthcoming, straightforward, and an advocate. Not to be mousy, not to tiptoe, but to be smart, savvy, and present and say, I've got some concerns here. I really hope that I'm wrong with this. I really do. And I'm believing that I might be. But in the off chance that I'm not, help me to understand how this situation happened.
Statistically, for every 100 black males entering kindergarten, only 3 will graduate from college. Only 45% of black males graduate from high school in the U.S. 32% of all suspended students are black, and they are 2 times more likely to receive longer punishments than their counterparts. Racial bias in education correlates strongly with black male overrepresentation in the penal system. The disparity in SAT scores may also be a result of cultural bias against African Americans in schools and the way SAT tests are developed. The average SAT score for black students is about 20% less than for white students. In addition, the trauma of being a foster or adopted child doubly impacts the success rate of the black child. The result is a tension between the child's culture and that of the schools, often leading to sour experiences with teachers who perceive the child as an undesirable element in the classroom and begin treating them differently.
A lot of times how we learn as African Americans is verbal. And we need to make sure that our teachers are doing differentiated instruction with our kids so they get what they need in school.
Well, it's interesting. I go to classes and I read articles, and right now it's talking about African American girls being maybe loud or animated and having that be perceived by white teachers as being disrespectful or, not well-mannered or whatever. And I'm thinking, what is this all about? But there is this bias, there is this filter, there is a set of rules and expectations, middle-class white values that we expect our children to abide by.
We're living in a racialized society, and to deny that racism or discrimination exists is to deny reality, really. So I think that they should definitely educate themselves, and they may think that they're colorblind, but that's really not that's devaluing the experience of the young adults that are coming through, or the children that are coming through their house that have to deal with racism and discrimination on a daily basis.
My mentor, my principal, had said something once that really stuck with me, and that was, she said, you know, you and I have to work for the same A, but I have to work 150 times harder. And I thought about that, and that really stuck with me, that there are so many barriers that maybe I have never even perceived because of my own white privilege, that she has to go through to get to the same place, so that we have the same BA and masters on our wall. And I think about that in terms of raising children. How do I, without giving power to those things and enabling that to be something that keeps them down, but by acknowledging those things so that we can strategize around them and make them speed bumps, but still get our kids to the same destination.
White privilege has been there. We've been programmed as African Americans, not even to know it sometimes, but it exists. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to change it. I just need to know the game and the rules so I can be successful at it and pass it on to my kids.
Here is an exercise to discovering white privilege. Yes or no? I can be sure that my children will be given educational materials that describe their race in a positive light. If you answered yes, you may not have noticed that most textbooks do not describe achievements of minority groups or their ancestry without focusing on enslavement or mistreatment. If you answered no, you're probably a minority or recognize the disparity. If I get pulled over for a possible traffic violation, or I didn't get hired, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. If you answered yes, your race has not been problematic for you. If you answered no, you are aware of or are subject to racial profiling and other prejudicial practices in the United States. I can take a job or attend a school with an affirmative action program without my peers suspecting that I got in because of my race. If you answered yes, your race is not a concern for you. If you answered no, you're aware that when people see minorities in a mostly majority setting, many assume it must not be on their own merit.
There's white privilege, and it's fed by racism, and it's real. And when foster parents don't acknowledge its real power to hurt and to maim and to crush the spirit of your kid, we're not equipping our kids. We're not truly loving our kids because we're not loving all of them and providing for all of what they need in this world and has the skills to navigate white middle-class values so that they can get out of the world what they deserve.
I know it's not a perfect world, but I think a lot of times when you're there in white families and you're black and you see the privileges that continue to occur for that white family that you don't have, is that there's got to be some self-hatred there. You got to be pretty tough not to say, if I wasn't black, what doors would be open for me? And so I talk about self-hatred and that it's not about skin color. It's really about learning the game, because once you know the rules and the guidelines, you can be successful too. And I don't know if always that white families can share that information to children of color, because they don't know it a lot of times. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. When you've gone through the struggle and you know what it takes, I can pass that on. But if I've never gone through the struggle, it's hard to pass it on.
We would like to believe that identity is something we create throughout the course of our lives. But for minorities, it's imposed upon them at birth. The one-drop rule, or 1/16th rule to identify blacks, emerged under slavery and is still a matter of common knowledge in the legal system today. In effect, any person with any known African black ancestry is considered to be black.
We talk openly about white privilege. We talk about stereotypes. We talk about that you need to be cognizant of other people's lifestyles and who they are. I sum it up with Damon. Damon is our son, who is biracial. He walked into my home and he said to me, do you want me to be black or do you want me to be white? And I said, you know what I really want you to be? Is a human being. I said, and with that, I'm going to give you some skills to be successful in that. And being a biracial kid, we're going to look at you in society as a black child. And there's lots of things you need to learn about being black.
I can only pick who I am at the end of the day and the decisions I make. I can't pick my skin color. I can't help if people don't like me for who I am. And there's so much more to me and so much more I can offer. And for someone to just stop and look at your skin and not be able to go any farther, it's almost sad for them that they're stuck there.
Your child may choose to identify with one race or another, or none at all. But no matter the identification or the process they go through to reach their true self, praise and admire it. How they choose to identify is another piece of the puzzle they have to work through.
No, I think it's just really important that whether you're a caregiver or a foster parent, you do allow your child or your youth to find who they are, and you don't expect them to identify with what you want them to identify with. Let them find themselves, because like I said, we've all been through so much, whether we're in the system or not. And a lot of times it is through our culture that we find our own empowerment that lets ourselves grow and lets us be who we're meant to be, and just gives us that power to go each day.
Celebrate all of who your child and family are. Do not set them apart because they are multiracial or different hues. The more you embrace, even if you don't completely understand it, the more your child will love you for it later. To answer the question, is love enough? Yes, but only when it is manifested in action. You will or have taken on the responsibility of raising a child. This is hard work. But when you add cultural differences to the mix, you have to work twice as hard and be ready and willing to put yourself out there for your kids.
Being a parent, even to your biological children, is difficult. But when you take on someone else's child and you're taking on their responsibility, and that child is black, you have to work harder. Just like maybe you've heard people say that as a black person you have to work twice as hard to prove that you're equal with a white person. White parents need to work twice as hard to prove that they care.
I don't think you can mother or parent a child if you don't know the struggles that they're going to have. You can't prepare them, because truly that's what we're doing, is when we bring kids in, even our own, we're preparing them to be successful when they walk out the door of our home. And if you don't know how to do that, then you don't need to be taking children in. As simple as that.
Provide your child with strategies to cope with racism, with people who question your family ties because you don't look alike, or the first time somebody calls your child a name, or when they don't get invited to a social gathering by their peers because of their color. If you are ready to keep it real, there is a child right now waiting for you to show them just how real love is.